Accessing library computer data.
The world doesn't always adhere to logic. And sometimes when you're lost, you're found.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed your little week off without a new Discovery episode, but we've got a new one. It must be Sunday night, and we are here to talk about it, me and Clay. We're going to be talking about the episode Choose Your Pain, which is episode 5 of season 1, written by Kemp Powers, which is a great name. Story goes to Gretchen J. Berg, Aaron Harberts, and Kemp Powers. It aired back on October 15th, 2017. In this episode, while on a mission, Lorca unexpectedly finds himself in the company of prisoner of war Starfleet Lieutenant Ash Tyler and notorious intergalactic criminal Harry Mudd. Burnham voices her concerns about the repercussions of the spore drive, jumping, and the effects on Ripper. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I wish I could choose my own pain. Insert joke here.
I know. It's a good title. It's thematic. It ties into the story and everything like that. But I wanted to
it's a little on the nose.
It's a little on the nose. Yeah, it's a freshman high schooler could probably see the theme that they're talking about here. But the
a little on the tardigrade snout.
We should pat ourselves on the back, I think, a little bit. You last week said that you thought that the tardigrade story could not possibly span the season. So you were correct on that point. Mm-hmm. I was saying that it seems like the spore drive has to do something much bigger than what the tardigrade is doing. And we seem to get an answer to that, a little bit of one. And then lastly, it's always been a point of contention from you that Starfleet pajamas would definitely have a Starfleet insignia on them. So
I honestly don't remember saying that, but I can see it being something I said, and I'm happy to find out that finally someone listened to me.
They're getting the important things done with Discovery. Anyway, I'm going to play.
But apparently, all toothbrushes look like dildos in the future.
Yeah, that was a very sexual toothbrushing scene, but obviously it's meant to be. We'll get into those too. I'm going to play an audio clip. Me and Clay are going to come back, and we're going to break down Choose Your Pain.
This hypospray contains tardigrade DNA and replication catalysts that will initiate rapid horizontal gene transfer in a host. The interface process requires an evolved organism, a species with a highly functioning nervous system, and one that, like the tardigrade, shares genetic information with mushrooms. The animal kingdom may have diverted from its fungal counterparts 600 million years ago, but Homo sapiens still share over half of our DNA with them.
You want to use a human? Eugenics experiments are forbidden.
I know. And that's why we need more time.
I gave you an order. Do you understand?
Captain Saru, I understand that you are upset. You're in command. It's a time of crisis. And your culture trains you to be on the heightened lookout for enemies. But I assure you, I'm not one of them.
How dare you treat me like one of your xenoanthropology subjects? You're not an enemy, Burnham. You are a proven predator.
All right, Clay. So we're going to talk about Choose Your Pain, which was an interesting episode, I think, in my opinion. I thought that, I'll just get it out of the way, I thought this was probably the best episode of the season, although it's far from perfect. And I do have a lot of my continuing concerns are still there that we voiced, and I don't think we need to go over them too often, except I'll probably bring them up when it's appropriate. But my concerns from previous are still there. I just thought that this episode was a better hour of TV than anything that they'd given us before.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like last week was a good jumping off point to kind of getting things rolling structure-wise, and I think this week kind of followed up on it pretty well. There's still some bits and pieces that I feel like they're not totally thinking through, like where the hell was the ship in relation to the starbase that he needed to take, that the captain needed to take a shuttle long enough that he could get captured?
Yeah, right.
Like, where the fuck was he? Like, no, that's the main mystery of this season is where the fuck is the ship?
I would, you sort of hit the nail on the head about the problems I have. Are they occasionally just seem to be writing scenes because they need that beat to happen, as opposed to any reason as to why he would be on this ship, why there's only one guy with him, why there's only, how the Klingons can find him. first and foremost and things like that.
Well, see, that's another thing. I was thinking about that. I was just watching a little bit of it again, and I was thinking, if it was a tighter show, like detail wise, my immediate thought would be, oh, well, clearly someone is ratting him out. Someone is telling the Klingons where he is, right? Like, why else would they capture him?
Right.
Why else would they know? Why else would they know his name? But they're so lax with these details in this show. Who knows? That might never come up again.
It could, yeah. Although I do feel that this episode did a little bit of it took me down from like a 10 to like a 7 in terms of concern about the detail stuff, because I do think that I don't think the show is going to pull everything together, but they're at least trying to connect a few of the dots. I still think that they're really sloppy about things.
Yeah.
The biggest one that took me out of it was Lorca, and this could come back and be fixed, but the reveal that this ties into two of my problems. When Lorca is captured, my two problems with the show are that they are a little bit sloppy with the details, and things move really, really fast sometimes. It's like too fast for me to understand why they aren't just settling on things. Lorca being captured is the prime example. I thought Lorca was going to be captured for longer than 7 minutes of the show. Yeah. Right? Like that seemed like something that would probably happen. And what they do is that they also, in the scene where he's captured, they reveal a bit of his backstory, where he was on a ship that was destroyed before the Discovery, and that was his previous commander. And, when they start bringing up that story, I'm like, oh, there's some nefarious thing that we're going to learn over the course of the season about Lorca. And no, he's like, yeah, I blew up the ship. I blew it up to prevent my men from being captured and tortured for the rest of their lives. So I did a good thing right there. And that seems to be the end of the story, unless this comes back. But the story problem there is, why was he the only person to get off the ship? Like, why wouldn't he blow himself up with the ship if that's the reason for... If he either had a way to get away and he could have saved more people and he just brutally killed people, or he should have gone down with the ship in the first place there. So, yeah, it's weird stuff like that.
Yeah, I think what could be interesting there, if they bring it back, if they get into it deeper, is it kind of explains his affinity towards Burnham a little bit more, because they are both sort of in similar situations. Well, even though if I was him, I feel like it would be a Cisco Picard situation where I would be fucking pissed at her.
Right, yeah.
For making me have to blow up my ship, but and kill all my friends. But yeah, I mean, I could explain that a little bit, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. Yeah, there's some details that were, I think my favorite scene of, you were talking about scenes written just because they have to hit beats. My favorite example of that is the escape scene, where they're going down the one hallway that they built for the show. Yeah. And then the guy he's with is like, no, I can't. Just leave me here. And it's like, okay, I'll try and find a way out and I'll come back for you. He goes around the corner. Then he just comes back. It actually literally is right around the corner. I found all the ships. You can't see them. You just got to, hang a hairpin here and it's all right there.
Yeah, he literally comes back and he's like, oh yeah, they're over here. And then it smash cuts to them on a ship. They somehow got off the ship and are... Yeah, that felt.
Don't worry about how they got off the ship. It's not important.
That's super Star Warsy.
I hate those ships. By the way. I don't like those ships.
The Klingon scout ships or whatever the hell they are.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, they don't. I'm not too impressed with the Klingon ship design at this point in this series. But let's pull our conversation together to a little bit of a tighter focus, because I thought that this episode was the only episode really so far outside of the pilot, which I'm hesitating to call an episode. So there's only been a couple of them, but this is the only one that felt like it had a story arc across the episode, as opposed to just a serialization beats that they're trying to set up. Mm-hmm. And I thought that the Tardigrade stuff was good. It's very Star Trek-y. I'm glad that they sort of resolved that story and that we don't have to deal with the Tardigrade anymore, really, because I didn't really care about that thing. And at the same time, it leaves a lot open for what's going to go forward. And I thought that they did a lot of character work here. Almost everybody grows a little bit, except for Tilly, who is completely useless still to this point.
What are you talking about? She dropped the first F-bomb in the history of Star Trek.
Oh, that's right. And then Anthony Rapp's eyebrows, who I think deserve an Oscar, just lit up at that point. He's a very eyebrow-heavy actor. But did you think that what'd you think of the story here on its own, sort of by an episode basis?
I thought it was good. It once they got into the Klingon capture thing, and they basically turn and look into the camera and explain to you the theme of the episode of choosing the pain of another to benefit yourself. I was like, all right, okay,
right.
But
I wonder if that'll tie into the tardigrade, right?
Yeah, right. That ended up playing out differently than I thought it would, because even though they kind of hit you on the nose with it there, it was a little bit different going forward, because I thought it was going to be more that same argument dealing with the tardigrade, and then having to find another way to exit. Like I was surprised that they went the way that they did in terms of just finishing that story, because usually that would be just like a beat in the story of that they're telling with the tardigrade. But I was happy to see that they got rid of it, and I thought it was pretty good. The story overall, the arc was pretty good, and the cops are going by very loudly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the stuff with Saru and Burnham was really good. I still am a little bit. It was weird to me that he seems to be the only person on the ship who has a problem with her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I like that. I like that Saru isn't just like the Data or Spock stand-in. He actually has character flaws.
And he's not. I thought his sort of conflict here was interesting. It's kind of a Trek trope where there's always one character who puts up, sort of the quote unquote bad idea. And I find myself a lot of the time saying his idea isn't really that bad. Maybe people should give him a little bit more leeway here, because Saru in this episode is not being outrageous in what he's asking them to do to the tardigrade, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's not being outrageous, but he is definitely overcompensating.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that
although I mean to be fair, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he is kind of. Yeah, he isn't really. He is sort of putting forth the only option they have, really, to try and save the captain, which is, we got to. The only way we could do is got to use this thing, so that's what we got to do.
And especially after they use it, and then they're in Klingon territory, and he's like, "Well, you need to wake the thing up again because we need to be able to get the hell out of here," which seems a reasonable kind of worry to me.
Yeah.
I thought that the Saru Burnham stuff was the best. They're sort of starting to explore the reason for the rift between the two of them. And I don't think the episode does a whole lot of explaining why Burnham does things like in the previous episode where she tricks him into coming in for no particular reason. People pointed out it's to get his threat sensors so that he knows that his like threat ganglia or whatever aren't reacting to Burnham. They're reacting to the monster instead. And, and I think that, there's still ways to get around that. Like, you could just have him go into the room and you not be there, and it seems like a less duplicitous way to sort of get his reaction from him. But
right.
I thought they did a good job here of they're showing what Saru is doing. He has those nice scenes where he's in the writing room and he does a very Data type thing where he wants the computer to create a protocol that will monitor whether or not he's being a good captain for him.
Yep.
And that's a nice little scene. They didn't do kind of stuff like that in any of the previous episodes of the show, and it's an insight into the characters that we're getting. You get stuff with Stamets. You learn that he's not as rigid, and he's much more sciencey based, and he's not quite the asshole that he's been in the past couple episodes. You get your stuff with Burnham. Tilly is there. We learn more about the Doctor character. He's starting to get involved, and we pick up the last cast member who's on the main credits that we haven't seen yet, which is the Shazad Latif, who is the Ash Tyler character that meets Lorca in the ship, and he comes back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's going to be a main. Yeah.
I was gonna say he seems like the Riker that they pick up at Farpoint that they finally put on the ship.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gonna be a recurring character, or he's the main cast member at this point. So this is the first appearance of him. I think our discussion into the sort of plot about it can go along lines. We might as well talk about a few of the things that happen here. We get the Klingon abduction, which we have both said that we have problems with. We meet Harry Mudd, which is interesting. What'd you think of Harry Mudd?
I don't know him from the original show. I didn't watch that episode, so I don't really know anything about him.
He's in 2 episodes of the original series. Yeah.
I found myself wondering why that character.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you know anything about him. I mean, clearly, it seems like he's probably going to come back somewhere down the line, judging by the way that his last scene went. But, like, I don't know why they picked him and not just some other. Why not make a new character? I don't know. Can you think of any? Do you know anything that seems like it would be a reason to choose him as opposed to just creating a new character?
No, I thought it was just really fan servicey. It's The thing about Mudd in the original series is a con man character, who Rainn Wilson is actually doing a pretty good impression of him, the original actor. And the problem that I always thought with Mudd, when they announced that they were bringing him back and Rainn Wilson is going to be this character, is that in the original series, Mudd fits in a lot better because he's this sort of like gregarious con man guy. He's like very mustache twirly, like he's super over the top and like just kind of a goofball. And I was wondering how he'd fit into Discovery. And Rainn Wilson's doing an impression of him, and I don't think that this character really fits in the Discovery universe all that well. He's far too much mustache twirly, even in this little limited scene that we get of him. It felt to me very fan servicey. It's another thing. It's a prequel. We know he's going to come back. We know that he is a con man. He's a con man at this point in time. He's going to be a con man 10 years down the line, all that kind of stuff. It felt to me very much like when Saru brings up the computer screen and he's like, give me the top 5 captains in the fleet. Mm-hmm. And every name that comes up is one that we're familiar with in some way. It's like,
the only ones I recognized were Bakula and Christopher Pike.
Yep, they had Bakula, Christopher Pike, Philippa Georgiou, who we've seen.
Oh, right, yes.
And they had Matt Decker, who's the Doomsday Machine Admiral.
Oh.
And they had something April, who I think is in command of the Enterprise, or is Kirk's commanding officer, I think, at this point in time. So we know all of them. It's just that kind of a thing, and that's what Harry Mudd felt to me. It's fan servicey down to the thing that he says his whole name every single time. He says his full Harlan Betancourt or whatever the fuck his name is, Mudd. Yeah, so you weren't too impressed with his appearances?
Yeah, I don't know. He was fine, I guess. He did his job. He seems to. I don't know if he's working with the Klingons or if he's just giving them intel in order to not get tortured or something. I mean, that remains to be seen, obviously. Yeah, he was fine. I mean, I'm not going to be rewatching the show multiple times because I love Rainn Wilson's portrayal of Harry Mudd. That doesn't mean it was bad. It's just, it was fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll come back to the tardigrade stuff. I guess we should spend a little bit of time on the Klingon stuff, which we've scattered about. So the Klingons have these sort of thematic, visceral, tie-in here, where they come. They're speaking more English in this one, at least.
I know, it's very helpful.
They come in and they say, apparently a Klingon tradition is when you have multiple prisoners, you go in and you select one of them to say, choose your pain, and that's the person who gets the beating. So you have Captain Lorca, Ash Tyler, and Harry Mudd in there who are all sort of pointing fingers at each other, and the Klingons beat them up.
I feel like if you took like 3 of those Klingons and took a picture of them, all dressed up with Choose Your Pain underneath it, it would be the best death metal album cover you've ever seen. Just like a hard black and white photo of those Klingons with Choose Your Pain underneath.
That's right. And a list of tour dates and everything like that coming to a quadrant near you. What'd you think of the Klingon adventure or misadventure or whatever you thought of it?
I found it to be ultimately pointless.
Just to get that character in, right? It's just to get Ash Tyler. Yeah.
Like, why? I mean, maybe I guess this is the problem with a serialized format, but I left thinking, why do they know Lorca's name? Why do they, what were they trying to get out of him? Just the information about the drive, right?
I think so. That's what they're saying on face, yeah.
Clearly they know about it. So that's one of the Lorca's fears is now confirmed.
Yep.
But I don't know. I just felt like it was, I don't know. It didn't do a lot for me. It just seemed like an excuse to get the Klingon.
I thought that it does a lot for showing your perception of Lorca, which is that he's not duplicitous. Really, he's pretty honorable this entire way through. I think it brings,
it's good. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it brings up a question of, is his eye disorder only there because it gives them a way to torture him in a G-rated fashion?
Why be G-rated? You're dropping F-bombs whenever you want, apparently, on this show.
I was expecting some real horrendous medieval shit to go down on him, and instead they just shine a light in his eyes.
Well, it's a time-honored Star Trek torture device, so...
Yeah, right, yeah. How many lights are there, Captain Lorca? But yeah, I thought that it showed Lorca to not be duplicitous. Even the backstory stuff that you get from him is that he's not duplicitous. He's a wartime captain or whatever, but there's nothing else really going on that we should be worried about at this point. I don't know if that'll change in the future, but that's what you get from this story. I when I say it was ultimately pointless, I guess like plot wise it felt pointless. But yeah, you do get some good character stuff out of him, and the new guy on the ship there. Whatever they do with him remains to be seen, obviously. Right, yeah.
Like, it's, it ends up feeling pointless when you have a scene like that escape scene where
It's just so easy.
Yeah, it's so easy, but at the same time, it's like the stakes are kind of like pretty low.
Right.
Or not really defined, or, yeah, that escape scene was probably the low point of the episode for me.
Yeah, it was really bad. It brought up the weird thing about, like, Ash Tyler says that he's like, oh, the female captain of this ship has a thing for me. And I was the first time he says, like, are they implying that she has sex with the prisoners? And then they just they upright. He just comes out and says, like, you had sex with me, when they have their fight scene in the hallway or whatever, which is an interesting turn.
Lorca makes reference to it as well when they're torturing him.
Right.
Apparently humans don't have enough holes or something. I forget exactly what he said.
Right, she has double the organs or something that they need because of that Klingon redundancy. Yeah, I thought that I was really just surprised that Lorca escapes this episode. That was shocking to me that he gets away in this. I thought this was going to be the Theon Greyjoy thing where he's gone for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all good because I don't want it to be a straight Game of Thrones ripoff. But do you think, were you surprised that they just pull him out after that? He's just back to normal. He's back on Discovery and everything.
Well, yes and no. No, if you think about it in terms of what Star Trek is usually like, in that everything goes back to one by the end of the episode, because it's episodically paced. But yes, in that they are doing a serialized thing, and they very easily could have left him off the ship for a couple episodes in a row, but they don't. So I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up for me. Like I understand why they bring him back. But yeah, they definitely could have easily left him there and given a little bit more weight to whatever it is they wanted him for.
Right. I mean, there's no indication whatsoever what the Klingons are doing in this episode, right? This episode, the Klingon appearance here has the possibility for me to be, in hindsight, when we're done with the season, go, why did that scene happen at all?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and again, another instance of where the fuck is the ship? When they escape, what's their plan? They're just flying into space.
Right? How do they know that
they don't know that the Discovery is there? And like, they don't even know. Do they know where they are in space on the Klingon ship?
No, probably. I'd assume they can look up a map, but I assume that they're not anywhere. They're not anywhere helpful, I guess.
But yeah, it's very convenient. It's a. I don't know what the plan was if the Discovery didn't happen to be there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he just sort of. I don't really remember how the Discovery finds them. I think it's all done sort of off camera, where they're just like, Saru tells them to run a bunch of analysis about where the Klingon ship could be, and I guess they find it at some point, and they sort of beam over to it.
And they don't blow up the other. Do they blow up the other?
Klingon ships?
No, they don't, because they just beam them out, right?
Yep.
So are they actively trying to avoid putting the Discovery up against a Klingon ship. I assume that they are, because they're trying to keep it a secret.
Right. Well, I think that's what the meeting at the start is all about with the Admiral, right? They're like, you need to pull it back a little bit because we can't lose the Discovery. And apparently, in another thing of the show moving very quickly, apparently they've been performing like raids on Klingon territory and stuff like that. So, the Discovery, which is ostensibly the science ship, has turned into basically, the ship that's winning the war for the Federation.
Yeah, I guess my issue is it's just another. Maybe this is my problem with having ships both on screen at the same time coming back to bite me, but I feel like there should be some sort of interaction between the Klingon ship they're escaping from and the Discovery.
Right.
Like, how far could he have flown that when the Discovery shows up, they wouldn't be on the Klingon sensors?
Right.
Or why don't they show up and create a diversion while he, it's one of those things where, like, they don't even see the Klingon ship. They show up specifically to rescue him. But they don't ever see the ship that he's on. No, they see the little scout ships. They just see the scout ships. And it's not a huge deal, but it's one of those details where it's like, this scene is in here because this scene needs to happen. But it's in the grander scheme of the structure of the story, it doesn't make sense a lot.
Yes, I agree that it doesn't make the story. It's sort of a pummeling to the story that they've got going, and also it's something that I feel is very Star Trek-y that they're really hesitant to do at this point. For some reason, they don't want to show the ships talking to each other, which is like a staple of the series, and it's surprising to me that they don't want to do anything like that. It's the Discovery's jumping too, for how important the spore drive is to everything. They do it a lot in this episode, and it almost happens to the point where they're doing it more than you realize, and I'm not getting a very good sense of the scope of the jumps that they're getting. I know that they're going basically wherever they want to go, which is interesting, but when it happens, it feels very unimportant, except for the tardigrade. It hurts the tardigrade. That's the only thing. But you never really get a good sense of the scale of what they're doing, of how far this is allowing them to go, and what if they had appeared off of Kronos or something, the Klingon homeworld. You go, wow, like this is pretty impressive. They can just go right into the heart of the enemy territory and then get out of there with Lorca. They don't do anything like that. They don't give you any establishing shots or anything.
Yeah, it's the thing that's been bothering me is that it doesn't have up to this point doesn't have enough weight to it when they do it. They do just seem to be doing it willy-nilly, even though it's hurting the tardigrade. I guess you gotta pick your battles with this stuff, I guess. But
I mean, they've done it enough where they've essentially killed the tardigrade at this point. Like, he's not dead, but they put him into a state of where he just kind of curls up in the fetal position and gives up and doesn't want to do anymore.
Yeah, and is that like 8 times?
Right.
Is that like 25 times? Not that I guess it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where, like I said last time, I don't know if the science of the device, or like let's in this case the practicality of the device or the ease of use is as important as the character weight of it.
Sure.
And I think they use it fairly well here. To a character point. The only thing I didn't expect is I was expecting Burnham to be the one to inject herself with the shit.
Yes. I thought that she was going to have Stamets when he says, like, we've got it up and running. I thought he was injecting her with it.
Exactly. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I still feel like that's probably coming based on that dream that she had.
Right.
I'm probably somewhere around part 2 of the season finale. But yeah, I think it works. I think it works better as a metaphorical device than it does like a science device. Because I mean, they give you that whole explanation about how it works, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Right. Yeah. Although that scene felt very Star Trek-y in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like it's funny that it's a lot of stuff
except for the crass profanity. Which, if you've listened to this show enough, you know that clearly I don't have any objections to that. But I feel like it feels weird in Star Trek, does it not?
It does feel, especially in such a small moment, kind of. Like, I guess the argument would be that, the Star Trek and Starfleet is about the discovery and, like, you should have this kind of nerdy excitement for it. But
yeah,
I have a couple problems. A, that it seems so obviously the show is like, hey, we're not on broadcast TV. We can do this every once in a while.
Yeah.
So we'll stick it in. And also, it ties in my sort of, I really like the sort of chain of command stuff in Star Trek. Like, I don't like when cadets are just coming in going like, fuck yeah, we're doing it. Like, it feels weird to me.
And it also, we were talking a bit to Sean about the show off air, and he brought up a really good point that it's very joyless. Overall.
Yeah, it is.
And that's the thing that bugs me the most about that Tilly character is I feel like they're making her extra quirky to cover the fact that everybody else is so fucking dour.
Yes, although I do think this episode took a step in a joyful direction. It had the joy of discovery in this episode, but previous, when we were talking to Sean about it, it was before that, and everything that leading up to this point was very dour.
Yeah, and you get some good character stuff like Stamets and his boyfriends. That stuff was good. Tilly is just, I don't know about her. I don't love that character. It feels like a very easy character to write to lighten up this show.
Still, I still have no idea what she does on the show.
Yeah, I have no idea.
She's just around when Burnham needs her to sort of be there. She has lunch with her and stuff. I think the performance is fine, but I think it is just she's a character meant to add a little bit of levity to when everyone else is much darker and much more sort of down in spirits and stuff like that.
Which if you think about it, is not true to the way that stuff works usually in Star Trek, because usually the humor comes out of the characters doing something unexpected in the situation. Like the humor of Worf is not because he's just cracking jokes all the time,
right?
Or the humor of Data is not because he's cracking jokes. They're doing stuff that makes sense for their character, but in a way that is very unexpected for most other people to act.
Do you think any of the characters on the show could have jokes written for them at that point? Yeah, like not jokes, but have like situations where you go like, oh, that's funny because it's off character for that person.
I think you could get away with that with Saru.
Yeah, Saru might be the one of the few, I think, on it.
Although even there, he's still getting the hang about what he's about. Like, is he? How would you describe him if you had to describe his character?
Saru is on like a species level. He's supposed to be the sort of like threat detection sort of worrywart guy, I guess. Although this episode seems to imply that, I guess it is kind of that he's a worrywart, but that he is. So he sort of second guesses himself a lot, and I guess that is true to the case of being a worrywart. He's very concerned about his choices, although I'd argue that his success as a Starfleet officer seems to imply that his choices are pretty good in general, so I think he should lighten up on himself in some way.
Well, shouldn't we all?
Yeah, right. Shouldn't take it a little bit easier. But yeah, what do you get from Saru? Is that sort of your take, or do you think there's something else that I'm missing?
Yeah, I think the self-confidence questions, this is the first time that they've really come through. Like that doesn't feel super innate to his character, although maybe it should, because his entire function is to go like, ugh, I don't feel good about this.
Yeah,
with his,
right.
Weird, back hair or whatever. So yeah, I guess I was just thinking about like, is his character clear enough that you could do something with him that makes that inverts the expectation to get a laugh out of it? And I don't really know. I mean, I think I think you could probably get away with Burnham to an extent, because she is so serious.
Yeah, I'm still sort of on Sean's thing. I don't find her particularly compelling yet. I thought this episode was good in a lot of ways, but I don't find her to be particularly interesting at this point. And the conundrums that she's coming up with are not nuanced enough yet to make me really like consider the character in any kind of different ways. And they've also basically seemed to have just abandoned the Vulcan thing, except for the fact that she talks like a Vulcan occasionally. But she's, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Vulcan thing doesn't really work for me at this point because I feel like she's evolved away from her Vulcan sensibility too much. And I know she spent a lot of time on the Shenzhou with Georgiou, and that seems to have changed her. But she doesn't hold enough of Vulcan-y traits to me in a lot of ways. Like, I feel that they could push that a little bit harder.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, I think with her, the issue, well, it's a couple things for me. I think the first one is I don't get any drive from her character. Like, I'm not sure what her story arc is at this point.
What keeps her going? Yeah,
because she even says in this episode, like, I don't even really know what to do with myself because I don't have a job. You know,
right.
So, like, there's no. I think I said this a couple episodes ago that I personally would have preferred it if her status on the ship was more in dispute, that it was the result of necessity as opposed to just the captain being like the cool principal who's like, hey man, you know, here's your permanent record. I'm going to tear this up. You're going to be back on the ship. No problem. You know, because I mean, so at the end of this episode, Saru is pretty much cool with her, at least to a certain extent.
Yeah, things must be better going forward, right?
Yeah. So like, what tension does she have? Like, why is she any different than anybody else who's on the ship, other than the fact that she's just sad?
Right. And now everybody is sort of bathing in this uniform sort of snarkiness with each other. It's a very modern series in how snarky everybody is with everybody, which is funny and very non-Star Trek-y. But they don't really have... This episode seemed to, while I was happy with the way that it pushed things forward, it also is kind of going to have to reset a lot of the relationships, I think. Like, they're going to have to set up new conflicts between people because they're working... You know, the Stamets thing was that he was difficult with Burnham because he had a sort of different perspective of what the tech was that they were working on. And now he seems to have come around to the point where he sees the same way that everyone does about the importance of what this new technology, the Spore Drive, is. Mm-hmm. And so they've resolved that a little bit. Tilly's there for whatever. Saru seems to be accepting of the fact that Burnham's not, you know, a threat to him and they can work together. Lorca will recover and be fine. Ash Tyler is going to come in and, you know, do whatever Ash Tyler does. So they need to reboot things in a way, and that'll be interesting to see how they do that in the next episode.
Yeah, you know what else bothered me about her, and overall, I feel like this is. I honestly
Burnham,
can't remember.
You're talking about?
Yeah, Burnham. I can't remember if it was like this in the last episode. She was only in this show for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
but she spends the climax of the episode sitting in her room alone.
Right. A lot of alone in the room time so far for Michael Burnham.
Yeah, and I think the lack of a drive behind her is hurting her as the primary character of the show. And maybe the intention is to not have her be. Maybe the intention is to have it feel more like an ensemble, which is fine.
Yeah.
But if the point is for her to be the main character of the show, the way that like a, you know, Picard or a Kirk is the main character of the show, she kind of needs to be involved in stuff a little bit more.
I feel more driven by Lorca at this point, which is kind of surprising. Because I didn't think that was the way they were going to play that character. I thought the Lorca character was going to play much more of a sort of mysterious supporting role, where you wouldn't see a lot of him in a lot of ways. Like, he would just be sort of there working on things, and you wouldn't get to know him too well. But they're actually getting to know him fairly well, so that seems to have gone by the wayside. Yeah,
no, definitely. Again, I don't know. It's tough to come down on this stuff too hard because it's only the 4th episode. The 5th episode? What episode is this?
This is the 5th.
5?
Yeah.
Or technically 3, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Technically 4, right? We got 1 and 2 if you count as 1, then 3, 4, and 5, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I didn't even realize that we hadn't seen everybody who was going to be on the show yet. So,
right.
You know, I guess...
Well, due to my innate racism, I thought that Shazad Latif was the woman who dies in the previous episode. So I thought that was her. So I was getting my genders of names mixed up and stuff. But no, this is actually that guy. See, I don't think that character was ever credited as a main cast member.
You might be a racist, but at least you weren't a sexist.
That's right. Win one battle at a time.
Yeah. Small steps.
Let's. I guess We'll wrap it up with the ending of the episode, which I watched a couple times because I was not sure if I saw it correctly the first time. We end with a scene of Stamets and the Doctor, who I don't know the Doctor's name off the top of my head, who are revealed to be lovers, as they had a little bit of sort of, eyebrow and like snark with each other that implied a relationship in their previous stuff. But they're brushing their teeth together using space toothbrushes. They have a scene that, surprising to me, does not end in a kiss, which is very odd, just because it felt like a scene that a relationship like theirs would end in a kiss, and he just gives him a pat on the shoulder.
Yeah, I was expecting that too.
I don't know if they were scared or if they thought it would be too predictable or something, but that scene really felt like it needed a kiss at the end. But anyway, it moves on, and so Anthony Rapp's character, Stamets, is standing in the bathroom alone. He turns and walks out, and the camera pans back to the mirror, and his mirror version is still standing there, sort of smirking at the camera. And then that mirror version turns around and walks out the room, and that's when the credits roll. What'd you think?
I'm into it.
Yeah. It seems to be we have to be moving towards some kind of multiple universe thing here, right?
Yeah.
And apparently Frakes, good old Will Riker, who's directing one of the episodes, let a spoiler out that the producers are not happy, is that the mirror universe is going to make an appearance in Discovery.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, I like it because I as I've said before, I like that stuff. But also it was a nice indication that they're just going to keep moving things forward.
Right.
Like that, plus the fact that they launched the tardigrade into space. I was like, all right, cool. That seems
he
to
does
be...
he does like a Dragon Ball Z attack when when the tardigrade leaves. That was a little bit absurd. Yeah, but they got rid of the tardigrade, which I'm very thankful for. They shot him off into space. We don't have to see him again.
Well, until he comes riding in through the fog on his horse to save the day in the last episode.
Yeah. Hopefully not that.
But yeah, it was nice to see them kind of move on from that plot point and then bring up this next thing. And it's I've said it a million times. I like consequences to actions, and in this case, this episode had a lot of consequences to actions. They used the drive too much, so it's killing the thing. So they got to use the drive again. So the doctor has to, or not the doctor, the Stamets has to inject himself with the shit and use it on himself. All right, cool. Well, what's the consequence of that? He's now in the movie Oculus, or whatever that movie was about the evil mirror that kills you. So yeah, I'm down. I'd much rather them do that moving forward and kind of, doing stories, finishing stories, and then continuing forward than, be like, oh, well, we can't get out of here again because Stamets he can't get enough of juice from the tardigrade because the tardigrade is in the bar with the spoil,
Right.
I'm glad that they kind of just put that finished that story, at least for the time being, it seems.
Yes.
And are moving forward to something else.
I'm glad they moved on to something that seems much more interesting in a lot of ways. That we were concerned that like the ethical dispute about the tardigrade feels like it's a one episode thing. They stretch it into 2 episodes over the course of the serialized nature. I still felt it could have done with 1 because I didn't, the episode leading up to this one was not great shakes. And so
to be fair, they kind of, the last episode they discover that they need it, and they only kind of hint at or intuit from watching it that something bad is happening, and they kind of lean into it in this one. So I think it worked over 2.
That's fair. I think that I'm glad that they booted it off because, as we were worried about, it couldn't possibly have lasted a season because the suffering of the lone tardigrade is not really that global of a problem, in my opinion.
You've never felt like a captured tardigrade in your life before, Wes?
Right. Why don't they just come up with a better method than sticking him with needles in the side to sort of make him go? You could just give him like a joystick like Riker had in Insurrection when the joystick just pops out of the ship.
Ooh, yeah, sure. Man, I can't wait till they detach the saucer section on this ship. It's going to be awesome.
Thing spins. It's spinning.
They better shoot the spinning section of this thing like a fucking Mega Man 2 weapon.
It's just
like the toy version that you would get where you hit the button and it just like fires the discus part. That I hope they do that by the end of the season.
Yeah, and so the ending of this episode made me happy because it's a genuinely kind of creepy scene, the way that they shoot it. It's unsettling, and I think it's opening up a lot of possibilities, and I think that anything that sort of digs us into why the spore drive is problematic is appreciated, and obviously it's something that the show has to do. But I thought the episode did a good job of setting that up.
I think they missed an opportunity to have his reflection have a sweet goatee.
All right, maybe that's what the why it was done in the bathroom, like Candyman or something, is because they should have had them shaving instead of brushing their teeth. That would have been nice. But yeah, that's we'll see more of this relationship going forward. Obviously, we'll see a lot more of the characters going forward. We're gonna play an audio clip, and me and Clay are gonna come back. And we're gonna wrap this thing up.
May the sun and moon watch your comings and goings in the endless nights and days that are before you.
Are you sure this will work?
No. But if this is its response to an adverse environment, what does it consider to be hospitable? This creature has traveled to the far ends of the universe. My hope is that what makes it most happy is to be free.
So yeah, I thought that Choose Your Pain was probably my favorite episode of the season so far. The prequel, not the prequels.
Choose your pain. Choose your pain.
The prologue episodes are kind of their own thing. It'll be interesting when the series is done to look back on the prologue episodes and see how they stand up to everything else, because they do feel a bit isolated, and I almost have a hard time comparing them to the episodes that we've had afterwards. But I was happy with this one. It kept me, my criticism before last week was that I watch these episodes and I don't really feel like I want to see the next one, or I'm not like, when the episode's over, I'm not like, oh, God damn it. Like, I really wish the next one was available to stream. This one was the first one. I was like, oh, good. Like, I'd like to see where this goes. So I'm happy on that front.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it was, I think the mirror thing at the end hooked me more than the rest of it did. Like, it was fun. Like, it was good. It was still pretty good, but I'm still missing some character stuff. Like, it's just, I don't love any of these characters yet.
Right.
And what they're doing with them is not interesting enough for me to be really interested in the next episode yet.
Yeah. Can we do let's do a character power ranking for yourself? Who would you put like number one in your power rankings here?
As far as quality goes, probably Saru.
Yeah, I'd put Saru as well. Number two?
Number two, I'm going to say Lorca, just because we've spent so much time with him, but I don't think he is particularly outstanding or different.
No,
he just seems to be, your run-of-the-mill captain with
an
guilt
edge
that he's working through.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an edge too. I'd agree that he's my number two as well, just because we spent a lot of time with him and he's being fleshed out. He's sort of a stock character at this point.
And I'm more interested, honestly, I got more interested in Stamets and the Doctor in this episode than anybody else they've shown so far. Like, they actually gave you some character interactions and relationships that felt natural and felt like they worked, and I'm, interested to see what they do in the future.
Yeah. Do you think their relationship is their relationship out in the open at this point? I don't think the show has said anything. Not that they're like closeted or anything, but do you think that does the crew know that they're in a relationship?
I think they probably do.
Yeah, because I think the only scene that we get with them is in the previous episode. Lorca walks in, and when he's healing his broken nose and his fractured skull, Lorca comes in. He doesn't really. There's no implication there. Everything's kept very professional. It's just it's funny that they kept it for so many episodes before they have this reveal, which I don't think is a problem. It's just it's intriguing that they waited for so long to have this one scene at the very end.
Yeah, and even in this episode, they kind of tease you with it a little bit that it makes more sense when you go back and watch it again, because when they come in to discuss the tardigrade with when it's Burnham and the doctor come in to talk to Stamets about it. Stamets makes some comment about, I don't know how you deal with, like, something that in retrospect is like, oh, that's a boyfriendy comment. That's not just a coworker comment. Yeah. I do really kind of like that they looked at the traditional doctor and, for let's say, captain relationship, like the Kirk and Bones relationship, and they were like, you know what? This makes a lot more sense if they're dating. Because like the doctor giving the other officer, like, snarky, well-meaning shit is like, it's a very relationshipy kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the 60s didn't want to deal with it, but it's a very, just sort of having the cantankerous relationship between doctor and patient makes sense in the context of a relationship between each other. And just, the steel balls of the doctor when your boyfriend comes in and he's got a fractured skull and you just have to fix him. So kudos to the doctor there. Although I wish I knew his name. I don't know what his name is.
I don't know if they've ever said it.
No. It took a while for the doctor character to make an appearance even. He wasn't there from the start. He
was, I think. I think he's been there since the first Discovery episode.
The first real one where they find the monster. Okay.
Yeah. And I do have to say, he's the only person that wears that uniform and looks like a fucking super. He must be jacked because it's like everybody else, it just sort of looks like a uniform. It looks kind of tight on him.
Yeah, it does.
And he looks like he can bench press.
It's I think the white color is nice too. I wish more of them wore the white. The white, it's like a nice crisp. It sets off against the background very well. Like you can see it very precisely. Yeah, he definitely wears his uniform better than everybody else. So that'll be interesting. The pajamas also obviously fit very well everybody. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts about Choose Your Pain, or are we pretty much done here?
Yeah, I think that we covered everything. Yeah, just I'm liking where they're going with some of the character stuff. I'm interested to see what happens with the mirror stuff. I think they got to do something with Burnham because Burnham has fallen by the wayside. Yeah, and whether or not that's intentional, I have no idea. But yeah, she just seems like for something. For the inciting for the first 2 episodes of the show, just to completely focus on the fact that she caused, may or may not have caused this war and is a mutineer and all this kind of stuff. She's not really doing anything. I mean, she's involved in some of the sciencey stuff, but like I said, she spends like the latter half of this episode sulking in her room.
Right.
And yeah, I think they got to do something with her, push her back towards the front, and make some use out of her. And even in the scene where they're having their the captain is having his meeting with the admirals or whoever those people were.
Yeah.
The woman, I can't remember. I don't remember what her rank. Is she an admiral? The one he was.
Yeah, I believe so. Are they implying that those two had a relationship in the past?
I don't know. I didn't pick up that stuff.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, she has to. It's like it's not until she drops that line about not being okay with Burnham being on the ship because she's a mutineer, and then even after that point, the captain's like, "Hey, man, I can do whatever I want." She's like, "I know."
Right.
It's a really weird, like her status on the ship and in Starfleet is just very strange to me.
And it even felt like they're trying to make I don't think they're trying to do this, but it felt very reminiscent of, anytime any character now brings up like new wartime powers, it feels very Patriot Act-y, in the U.S. And it's not like we don't get a clear sense from Lorca that what he's doing is sort of nefarious in a lot of ways that people, some people would say the Patriot Act is, like how it's infringing on anybody's personal liberties or whatever. Like, not that he has to be doing that with hiring Burnham, but you don't get any sense that there's any sort of duplicitous nature to what he's done with her. He just likes her.
Yeah. And like even And people who object to it, even if they're admirals, it's just kind of like, yeah, but you can do whatever you want. And she goes out of her way to mention that Burnham is the only convicted mutineer in the history of Starfleet.
Right. Yeah.
I just feel like she should be a bigger deal in terms of like the way people react to her on her own ship. Or,
right.
I don't know. Well, I'm sure they'll do something with it later in the season where everyone's like, when the plot requires it, people are not going to trust her anymore. But.
There's some super fan out there who has written, 5 series of his own TV show that takes place 50 years before this show and features a mutineer. And he's like, God damn it. They completely ruined my story. I can't sell this anymore. But we'll see.
What did you think of the sorry, not to drag it out, but what did you think of the Klingon captain's weird white suit with the red like fingernails coming out of the shoulders?
Also odd that they basically melted half her face at the episode, so we'll have to see how that resolves itself.
Those guns are serious, man.
Yeah, those apparently the Klingon disruptors have been toned down a notch or something, because those things are pretty impressive at this point. They just obliterate people.
The bridge between this series and the original series is everybody, all the races getting together and going, guys, we really gotta cool it.
Yeah, we're going too fast. We're jumping every which way. We got these guns that melt people's faces. This is just let's tone it down.
Can we have phasers that start at like 1 and that you could just zap someone repeatedly with while you slowly crank them up to full power?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I thought this was a pretty good episode. This set up a lot of story that I think will be interesting going forward. It made a couple character moves that we want to see more of, but it started down the path and everything like that. So I think there's something to be optimistic here. I was not as optimistic the last episode, so I think that this one's moving in the right directions.
I want more Chief O'Brien in the show.
Yes. Well, there's always Deep Space Nine for that. We'll have to hop back on that. Let me see. Did I have any last thing to say? No, not really. I think that's it. Well, Clay, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the Mirror Universe.
Yeah. We'll get some sort of implication here. And as you said, I didn't even think about her dream is potentially foreshadowing that, where it's a doubling of people and causing, she's imagining herself as the tardigrade and being the one at the controls, which you could view as both. That's what she sees herself doing to the tardigrade, and it's a nice little foreshadow to what actually might be happening.
Unless she has to use herself, her mirror self, to jump the Discovery back into the Prime timeline. But she actually is using herself and letting she's using Prime timeline her and letting Mirror Universe her go back to the Prime timeline, because in the Mirror Universe, she's the opposite of a mutineer. She's the best Starfleet officer ever.
Yeah. I can't disagree, and I think that if we're going to
Star Trek Discovery writing staff, call me.
If we're going to be having the Prime Universe, we need to have primetime Dion Lewis, I think, make a guest appearance here. Let's see. So, guys, thank you very much for listening to the show. You can follow the social media stuff, Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is in the video description or in the podcast blurb. You can go to patreon.com/The Pensky File and support the show for a couple $1 a month. You get extra content, you get extra podcasts, you get behind-the-scenes vlogs, all that stuff that people want on Patreon. And it's a great way to support the show. We much appreciate it. And as always, we give a shout-out to our high-tier patrons, and that goes to Tariq Latif, Joint Mango, Ben Douglas, Kyle Barrett, Vincent Adultman, Stephen Cobb, Tex Albert, Matthew Ross, Mike Burnett. Guys, thank you very much for supporting the show. We appreciate it. Clay will be back next week, I suppose, right?
Yes, I don't see why not.
With, I think it's called Lath, something like that.
Is there a preview? I couldn't find like a next episode preview.
I didn't see one. Normally it comes before the credits roll, I think, in the previous episodes, and it didn't happen for this one. I think that might be because they wanted to get the shock of the cut from the mirror scene, which is a very abrupt cut when they end the episode. I'll have to go back and look, but I didn't see it when it came up. Anyway, we'll have more Harry Mudd coming forward. Guys, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.